we think that indoctrinating soldiers helps both the country and the soldiers themselves. We believe two things. Firstly, that we would be decreasing the total amount of suffering in the country and in the war. And secondly, we would reduce the amount of information leaks, which allows the war to end faster, which allows for, inevitably also allows for less suffering in the entire war. Let me tell you what happens when a soldier gets caught. When they get caught and are prisoners of war, the state who caught them, or the country that caught them, has an inherent incentive to torture and get as much information out from these soldiers as possible. And obviously, because, or most of the time because of the soldiers' loyalty, they tend to torture the soldiers and put them in insane levels of pain so that they would spill the secrets of the state. Many die a brutal death, either by not being able, either by holding the secrets and then dying, or spilling the secrets and then dying because of the lack of proper medical care for these individuals, because well, the country doesn't really have a strong incentive to protect these prisoners. Others could be experimented on and face a brutal death. One such example was Germany, when they had prisoners of war and then they would put them in altitude experiments, temperature experiments, and many died from these type of experiments. And another one is just very simply the fact that the living conditions there are extremely poor, and prisoners can be there for weeks or months on end, which causes many of them to die from illness and starvation. And overall, the lives of these people and of these soldiers would end in high amounts of suffering before they die. They would also be used as negotiation tools for the enemy to gain an advantage on the country. And this causes the country to have two major downsides. Firstly, because they're used as negotiation tools, the country has to give some sort of advantage or some sort of weakness to the enemy, just for getting these soldiers back who tend to be broken, who tend to have suffered so much, they have mental trauma that plagues them for the rest of their lives, who tend to not be able to even defend their country anymore because of the amount of suffering they went through, both physically and mentally. Second, many of these soldiers would probably be unable to hold all the secrets in, and therefore at least some of them would spill the secrets to the enemy. Having this information advantage causes the country to be at a major disadvantage, because firstly, they do not know what the enemy knows. So they could think and plan and create secret plans and put a lot of resources into this secret plan, which will be thwarted by the enemies and flipped onto their head because they didn't know that the enemy had that information. Secondly, the information leaks would cause a limiting of options for the country to be able to act against the enemy, because they have to act and assume that the plans they've made are already exposed, and therefore months of planning or are wasted, and resources invested are wasted, which would push the country's progress by a lot. This would cause the country to be in a extreme disadvantage against the other country, which would cause them, or which would increase the likelihood where this country would, lose the war. A soldier's duty is to help the country win the war and therefore protect its citizens. A soldier's duty is to put their all, and their all including their lives, to help protect the citizens of the country so that it doesn't get foreignly invaded. This moral obligation that these soldiers have would allow the country to be safe from war, or to be safe from information leaks. And if they do kill themselves before they are captured, it would help to prevent major information leaks. This would allow the country to not be in a tactical and strategical disadvantage. It will allow them to not be on the back foot of the war, and it will also stop a lot of suffering done onto the soldiers themselves, which therefore allows them to help win the war, which allows them to not have people die. Because when a country loses a war and another country comes and take over, the effects of that is that there's a lot of discrimination, a lot of torture, a lot of bullying, and what I mean by that is a lot of suffering done onto the native people. This would include Japan coming to Singapore and killing a lot of people for the fun of it, or the Nanjing massacre where Japanese soldiers would just have a competition of killing people. Many citizens would die. And the country would be in a lot of economical and physical damaged. This is why we are so proud to propose.